Everybody? Justin here to do the third part, part 3. Year in Wrestling Reloaded 1986, part 3. Final part of 86. Part 2, I went very long because I had a lot to get to. Part 2, I talked about WWF, the big event. Great American Bash 86 tour. David Crockett Parade of Champions event from 86. All the Saturday main events I reviewed from 86. So now, this is part 3. The final part of 1986. The Year in Wrestling Reloaded. Check out my original Year in Wrestling videos. They're just called Year in Wrestling. Check them out. So now we're going to get to some news items that happened in 86, news stories, and then I'll get to Starrcade 86 review. This happened on, let's see here, gotta go to 86. So on June 17th, 1986, Antonio Inoki defeated Andre the Giant by submission in Japan. September 16th, 86, Chris Adams is convicted of misdemeanor assault for headbutting an airline pilot. On a June 30th flight from Puerto Rico to Texas, he was sentenced to 3 months in prison. That's just really stupid of him. The guy is probably drunk. To headbutt a pilot? Not good. What if he headbutted the pilot and he was unconscious and the plane crashed? Very stupid move to try to headbutt a pilot. Never do that. Chris Adams, the guy was a pretty good worker. Talking about gentleman Chris Adams. Pretty damn good worker, but the guy was messed up in the head because eventually he committed suicide. October 9th, Antonio Inoki pins former boxing world champion Leon Spinks in an 8-round of wrestler versus boxer bout in Tokyo before a sellout crowd of 11,520 fans. So, there it is. Antonio Inoki took on Leon Spinks. I never saw that match, but I'm sure it was odd. October 14th, 1986. Very sad what happened. Magnum TA crashes his Porsche into a utility pole at 2:30 in the morning in Charlotte, North Carolina. Magnum's 5th vertebrae from the top explodes, sending bone fragments into his spinal cord and resulting in extensive surgery and physical therapy. Remarkable, he beats the odds to survive and walk again. So, Magnum TA, the guy was really lucky he didn't end up paralyzed. Sadly, he had to retire after this. I think he tried to come back. I'm sure he tried to rehab and return, but he wasn't able to because of that very bad accident. Dusty was the booker of NWA, the head booker, and he was pretty heartbroken because him and Magnum TA were really good friends. And Magnum TA, the guy's a big draw. In 86, 85, the guy was a pretty major star, rising star in the NWA. And if Magnum TA never got hurt, the guy would have probably won the NWA World title from Ric Flair. Instead of, at Starrcade 86, instead of Nikita Koloff against Ric Flair, probably would have been Magnum TA against Ric Flair. So that is really tragic, but it's a very good thing that Magnum TA didn't end up paralyzed. So December 12th, Dr. Death, Steve Williams, defeats the UWF champion one-man gang in Houston, Texas to become the winner of the $50,000 Pro Wrestling Illustrated UWF Challenge Cup Tournament. December 13th, Dynamite Kid collapses due to a severe back injury during a match in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. So by this time, the end of 86, my opinion, end of 86, Dynamite Kid was really broken down. The guy has a really bad back from his style of wrestling. It's pretty amazing he survived to keep wrestling in 87 and a lot of 88. Dynamite Kid, the guy probably took a lot of drugs, a lot of painkillers, probably a lot of cocaine, a lot of steroids, so he wouldn't feel his back when he was wrestling. But Dynamite, the guy is really broken down. I can't believe he actually still wrestled in 1989. And I think 88, or I think it was 89, in All Japan Pro Wrestling with Davey Boy Smith. They went to All Japan, had a series of pretty good tag matches. I actually have a DVD, the best of the British Bulldogs in Japan, in All Japan Pro Wrestling. It's pretty good stuff. There's like 4 or 5 tag matches of the British Bulldogs in All Japan. I believe they take on Dr. Death, Steve Williams, and Terry Gordy. They take on Stan Hansen and a partner of his. And it's pretty good DVD. So there's all the news stories for the rest of 86. Now I'm going to review Starrcade 86. In Starrcade 86, there's no attendant. I don't know if it was sold out. Because I have a list here of how many people were at all these pay-per-view events. There's a list, and Starrcade 86 is not listed. Whatever. So now Starrcade 86. If I can find it. I know it's in here. So Starrcade 86 took place from the Greensboro Coliseum in Greensboro, North Carolina, and from Atlanta, Georgia. Greensboro matches: Baron Von Raschke and Hector Guerrero defeated Shasta Watley and Congo the Barbarian. Wahoo McDaniel defeated Rick Rude in a strap match. Jimmy Valiant defeated Paul Jones because they were in a feud. NWA World Tag Team Champions, the Midnight Express, defeated Ole and Arn Anderson in a cage. I believe it was in a cage. It had to be in a cage. I think it was in a cage. That was a damn good tag match. If you haven't watched it or seen it, watch it on the WWE Network. Tully Blanchard had a great feud with Dusty Rhodes in 86, even going into 87. Tully Blanchard defeated the NWA TV champion Dusty Rhodes to win the title. Now Atlanta. We go to Atlanta, Starrcade matches. Jimmy Garvin and Brad Armstrong wrestled to a time limit draw. Big Bubba Rogers, a.k.a. the Big Boss Man, but Big Bubba Rogers defeated Ronnie Garvin in a Louisville street fight. Sam Houston defeated Bill Dundee by DQ. U.S. Tag Team Champions Ivan Koloff and Crusher Cruise Ship defeated the Kansas Jayhawks. Don't know who the hell they were. I know they were a team. That's about it. The Road Warriors, this was legendary. The Road Warriors took on the Midnight Express. And this match was legendary because of what happened to Jim Cornette after it. Road Warriors defeated the Midnight Express in a scaffold match on NWA TV on Saturday night on the Superstation. They had great build-up to the scaffold match. They had the Road Warriors cutting promos from like a couple stories up in a building. They had a pumpkin. They were like, this pumpkin's Bobby Eaton, this pumpkin's Dennis Condrey. Look, this is what's going to happen to you at Starrcade 86. And this, I believe the event was called Night of the Skywalkers, I think. It was called Night of the Skywalkers. Because Starrcade 87 was called Chi-Town Heat. So Night of the Skywalkers, the Road Warriors were like, this is what's going to happen to you at Starrcade in the scaffold match. And they threw the pumpkins out of the window or off a building. And they showed the pumpkins in slow motion. These episodes are on the network if you want to watch them. Just watch, like, I would say from October to the end of November is the build-up to Starrcade 86. Very good build-up. A lot of interviews, a lot of hyping the event. So the pumpkins are in slow motion going, they bust open. When they hit the concrete, they bust open, they smash in a million pieces. It's awesome promo video. As they show the pumpkins falling like they're Dennis Condrey and Bobby Eaton, and then they just bust open. It's pretty awesome. So then after the match, of course, the Midnight Express had to lose. They take the bumps off the scaffold, and they were not pretty looking bumps. It looked like they kind of got hurt, and they were probably pretty sore after the event. But after the match, the Road Warriors and Paul Ellering, or I think it's Paul Ellering, or Road Warrior Hawk, chase up Jim Cornette up to the scaffold. He's up there, he's standing, he has both Road Warriors right on both sides of him, so he can't go anywhere. Jim Cornette is begging, please don't hurt me. He gets down on his stomach. And Jim Cornette explained this. I heard him explain it in a Jim Cornette Shoot interview that I own. Jim Cornette explains he was going to get down on his stomach on the scaffold. He was going to reach his hands onto the ladder, hang from the ladder. And then Big Bubba Rogers was right under him. And I guess Jim Cornette thought, I'll let go and I'll fall. And Big Bubba, because he's so damn big, Big Bubba will catch me. He thought Big Bubba was going to catch him. So Jim Cornette, the guy wasn't afraid to fall because he thought Big Bubba would catch him. Instead, I guess Jim Cornette or Big Bubba, they didn't think of. Big Bubba had to look up into the ring lights around the ring, and basically he's blinded. He had to look up to the ring lights. Probably couldn't see Jim Cornette falling, and he couldn't catch him because the bright-ass ring lights. So I guess Big Bubba told Jim Cornette after he fell and blew his knee out, destroyed his knee, busted the cartilage. Jim Cornette explained his knee blew up, and it was like, it's huge. It just blew up on his knees like out to here. It was nasty, and they had to stick needles in it, doctors, and they kept pulling out fluid over and over and over, pulling out fluids. That had to be super painful for Jim Cornette. It had to really be painful. But he survived it, but now because he's older, he says he still has knee problems. And that knee from Starrcade 86 fall off the scaffold. And I guess Big Bubba said to Jim Cornette, hey man, I tried to catch you, but I couldn't see you falling because of probably the ring lights. So that was just a legendary fall. I mean, NWA, Jim Crockett Promotions, they played that over and over and over and over to try to sell Starrcade 86, to sell the videotape of Jim Cornette falling. And then once he would start falling, they would stop the tape and like pause it. I'm sure it sold a lot of videos back in the 80s. Starrcade 86, I think it was on closed circuit, might have been on pay-per-view, I'm not sure, but the videotape Starrcade 86 was probably one of the best sellers for the NWA and the Jim Crockett Promotions era. Probably was a great seller because of that scaffold fall. So I believe, I forget the pay, Jim Cornette, I think he said what he got paid to fall, or to go up there and fall, or to drop down. And it was nasty. The fall is just, it's cringeworthy. Every time I see it, I go like this, like, oh my God. Because he just fell straight down. Nobody caught him. Fell straight down on his feet. Knees buckled. And one of his knees was destroyed. Just exploded. Because all that pressure. Falling from that height, at that speed, on your feet. Not good. If I was Jim Cornette, I would have tried to fall on my ass or something, but he thought Big Bubba would catch him, I guess. I'm sure that was a plan, but it didn't work out. So, Road Warriors defeated Midnight Express, legendary scaffold match because of the Jim Cornette fall at the end. NWA main event was NWA World Champion Ric Flair defending against Nikita Koloff. It was a decent match. It wasn't bad, but I wasn't for Nikita Koloff ever being a world champion. I don't know. It wasn't a great main event for a Starrcade. Dusty Flair at 2 Starrcades, that was awesome. The first Starrcade, Harley Race, Ric Flair, that was awesome. Starrcade 86 main event, not so awesome. And I'm sure they would have put Magnum TA in that spot, but he was in the car accident. So they had to put Nikita in it, and he turned babyface. Even Starrcade 87 had a better main event. Ric Flair, Ronnie Garvin, that was a lot better than the Starrcade 86 main event. So that's Starrcade 86. It was a good event. The entire event was good, but it wasn't great. Was Starrcade 86 better than WrestleMania 2? Absolutely, yes it was. It was a lot better than WrestleMania 2. So, I guess, the 2 biggest events of the year, the NWA won. But, I still think in 86, WWF was a lot better. They had the Macho Man, they had Hogan, they had the Heenan family, they had King Kong Bundy, John Studd, Andre, Hart Foundation, British Bulldogs. They had the Rougeau brothers, great team. Underrated. Rougeau brothers are really underrated. Really a damn underrated tag team. Just WWF was on the rise. They had so much great talent. They were just, to me as a fan, WWF was a lot better in 86 than the NWA. But you can't, also WWF in 86 had primetime wrestling. Bobby Heenan, Gorilla Monsoon, legendary together. They were just fantastic together. So, I give the edge to the WWF. They won in 86. But the NWA still did a lot of great stuff. They were making tons of money. They made a ton of money on the Great American Bash Tour. They made a ton of money on Starrcade 6. NWA was rolling. starting to roll and making money. Same with WWF. I'm sure WWF made more. That's just my opinion. They probably made more money. And they had better production. WWF always had better production than the NWA and WCW. Anyways, 86, the year in wrestling, 86, it was a great year. NWA, you had the Four Horsemen debut, you had them feud with Dusty, Magnum TA, Road Warriors, they feuded with the Rock and Roll Express. The NWA had great talent, Hall of Fame talent, part of their roster in their prime. WWF had Hall of Fame talent. They had this guy, the Hot Rod. He was on fire, always. I liked Rowdy Piper more as a... I liked him more as a heel. But he did turn babyface in 86. But he was a much better heel. But he was a good babyface in 91, 92. He was a very good babyface. Anyways, 86 was a great year. I didn't talk about much of the NWA. I mean, not NWA. AWA. I didn't talk about them that much because their only big event was, what was it called? Wrestle Rock. And it wasn't that good. And I didn't talk much about WCCW, but they started losing a lot of good talent. So the two main companies are NWA and WWF. And as I said, WWF to me was better in 86. Hope you enjoyed the year in wrestling. Reloaded 1986 Part 3. Have a great week. Have a great Sunday night. Bye for now.